With the announcement of Shadowkeep, it seems the darkness is closer than we think, and we even have proof to cement this line into stone. Today we're going to uncover the darkness that's been hidden on our moon for a while now and discuss how Shadowkeep may stir up the reawakening of the darkness in our system and fuel the need to protect our home once more. Some weird things we'll investigate includes a secret corrupted thrall that may be linked to the darkness, what Eris found that caused these nightmares, old concepts and audio that could inspire this new release, and tons more. The darkness has always been around in the Destiny universe. If it wasn't at the forefront of the story, it was waiting there in lore books, grimoire cards, and at the edge of the solar system, just watching as if it was staking out its next move. Eris Morn has been gone since the start of Destiny 2 in search of a way to stop the Hive and their remaining leadership, some of the Worm Gods, possibly Savathun and her crew, and so on. Now apparently from what we can tell, Eris' search led her back to the moon where she awoke something that could change humanity forever. From this new Vidoc and trailer, it would seem that Eris has awoke part of the darkness, something that caused these nightmares to pop up, haunting us of our past battles and encounters.
Nightmares now stalk the surface, walking shadows, seeking vengeance. Our old fears, they rise again.
Now more on that in a bit, but let's talk about the darkness and a card from the season of the Drifter, where a Hive thrall gets corrupted by a shard on the moon. So the Guardian in this card looks to be Fenchurch, as is abbreviated at the top. It says this: last week I was deployed by Ikora for routine surveillance of the quarantine zone outside the Hellmouth. Hive populations remain low and grow ever lower thanks to the efforts of a small contingent of veteran Guardians who have made their homes on Luna. Around 1900 hours yesterday afternoon, I began to experience a crushing headache and excused myself from patrol to recuperate. Though I originally intended to lay down for a nap, I fell asleep instead and experienced multiple vivid dreams over the next 11.5 hours. In all of these dreams, I was trying to catch up with Agent Eris in a crowd. She was always out of reach, whether by 200 meters or 20 meters. I had the sense that I needed to speak to her. When I woke, I found that my headache had not improved. I prepared my armor and exited my bivouac to find a single stationary thrall crouched nearby. It stood as I approached, but made no motion to attack me. I fired one shot, killing it immediately. Upon stepping forward to examine its corpse, I saw a solid black fragment of an unknown material embedded in its chest cavity. The fragment resembled a flake or a shard of some larger object, not dissimilar to a high-gain photovoltaic panel. I requested that my ghost perform a standard material analysis of the fragment, but neither one of us could confidently identify its qualities or provenance. That analysis is attached to this report as analysis number 1. I requested that my ghost attempt to contain and transmit the fragment for quarantine on my jump ship. He was unable to establish a light link with the object, describing the fragment as slippery and tiring to try to catch a hold of. I used the barrel of my sniper to touch and then work the fragment out of the thrall's corpse. Using my rifle, I turned the fragment over and examined it from multiple angles. I requested that my ghost run another deep scan of this object. That analysis is attached to this report as analysis number 2. We concluded that the material seemed to be inert and that it did not seem to be a part of any complex device or mechanism. At this point, I broke protocol and did not request additional backup. Instead, I picked up the fragment by hand and immediately experienced a vivid hallucination. I stood over VIP number 0704's shoulder as she dressed a 7-inch gash on Agent Eris's thigh. Both 0704 and Eris were dressed for combat. Hundreds of fragments of the unknown material hung in the air around us, apparent shrapnel from the wreckage of a nearby ship of unrecognizable make and model. Eris looked directly toward me and said some words in Russian, which I translated and perhaps could mean pathetic. The duration of the hallucination was approximately 7 seconds. At its conclusion, my headache disappeared. My ghost and I held our position for the next 30 minutes, then collected the body of the thrall and the fragment for transportation. I delivered myself and my cargo to quarantine and experienced no further mental disturbances while detained. So me personally, I was so wrapped up in all of the Season of the Drifter stuff, I didn't get a chance to read this card, and now I'm so happy that I did because this is crazy. In the information, we can see that Fen-092, which is probably Fenchurch, which Tess Everest talks about forever now, was set up on the moon in a tiny camp. The reason he was here to help guardians around the area, and hive population seemed pretty low, and they were just trying to make sure that the hive didn't try and retake our moon and keep the numbers down, right? One day he felt a massive headache and went back to his camp to get some rest. Upon awakening, he found a thrall outside of his camp that didn't attack him, and something was wrong with it. Upon further inspection after killing it, this thrall had a weird shard lodged in its chest. He even stated that it looked to be a smaller chunk of perhaps something larger. Fenchurch and his ghost couldn't identify this object. They said they were unable to transmat it, find any research, and had a hard time interacting with it, saying that the light couldn't really interact with this object. Now when you think about this card came out in the Season of the Drifter, and as many cards do, it hints towards the future of this ever-evolving story. It seems that things on Luna were alright, but then Fenchurch had these visions of Eris, hallucinations, found this hive with this dark fragment, and then he was back to normal. This could seem like the beginning of what Eris could have unleashed by accident, from what we can assume.
Because I'm just super excited by what we're actually going to expose. It's not just what Eris is doing there right now. It's not just about this new threat. It's not just about nightmares, which are now, infesting our moon. It's about the history there, and it's about what's changed since you were last there.
In the new trailer and Vidoc, we get a look at some new architecture that we haven't really seen anywhere else. Now the community has been trying to piece this together, and it looks completely new. This either is related to a new sect of hive here on Luna, or part of Darkness Origins, as it looks kind of like the metallic ships we see at the end of the cutscene is very smooth and quite dark, and plus when you compare it to the photovoltaic panel which Fenchurch described, it's kind of like a solar panel looking thing. We then can think about the fifth race that was never used and always presumed to be the Darkness. At a specific clip in the Vidoc, we can see these hovering beings. In your opinion, do these resemble Guardians and their past, perhaps those who were trapped in the moon like Eris's fire team maybe became corrupted, or is this hints of the Darkness itself with a new race? We can see this big guy here in the middle and the beings hovering around him, which my opinion suggests that they could be a part of this madness, controlling or manifesting this dark energy over the nightmares or beings like this one. And to add on to that, in the new releases, they say the Darkness is closer than you think.
The Darkness is actually a lot closer than you realized.
Now you know my suffering.
So there's obvious hints that the Darkness is a part of what's going on here on the moon, but the questions really stem from these weird floating beings and the new architecture we've seen. So given the hints from Bungie in the Vidoc and the corruption of this thrall, it would seem for sure that the Darkness has something to do with this. But the crazy thing to think about is that this Darkness may have been here on the moon the whole time. What if the Hive and our Guardians exploration in the first game just happened to miss whatever's been trapped away here? Now there are also theories that suggest this is how the darkness could have destroyed us the first time because it was here on the moon just watching, and we've seen with the many clips in Curse of Osiris and Warmind that when the Traveler awoke, it changed things. It did things with the Infinite Forest on Nessus, it brought those pyramid ships closer, reawakening, and perhaps it reawoke whatever was on the moon as well. I mean, they say Eris did, but that's just something I'm throwing out there.
The awakening of the Traveler. This is our new beginning. But now there are things stirring beneath our feet, provoked by the Traveler's light. Our war is just beginning.
The last bit of information we have is from old Destiny 1 concepts that were never used and some audio for Destiny 2 that was never in the game. Then we'll get into the audio in a second, but let's talk about the concepts first. So it was said that in the supercut version of the game, or one of the storylines that got thrown out and replaced, that there was a dark fragment on the moon that was the main focal point of the story. This thing was corrupted, I believe the Hive were trying to corrupt it or whatever, and if they did, if they were successful, this would destroy the city and the Traveler would turn to darkness. Now obviously that never happened. The closest thing we got to that was the Chamber of Night mission on the moon in Destiny 1, with a little piece or shard of the Traveler. But in that leak and older storyline, it seemed that this shard of the Traveler was a more integral part of the story, and had sort of the same idea, darkness within the moon corrupting things in the universe.
What is this thing? It's a shard of the Traveler. They were using it against the Traveler, devouring its light. But we freed it. Our new friend said there are enemies on Venus worse than this. Great.
We then have some dialogue from Destiny 2. Now all this stuff was data mined, I think back in the beta or something like that, and these files were never used. We can see folders like the Dreadnought, Cosmodrome, Mars, Mercury, Phobos, Reef, Sparrow Racing League, the Myriad, and tons others. Now it was believed that maybe they were going to have us explore some of the old locations in Destiny 2 as well, and some new ones, but things did in fact get changed up, but we don't see a lot of these anywhere mentioned. But in some of these files we have some audio lines talking about the Hellmouth and the moon, the darkness being on the moon, and also something involving the Fallen. So the first couple of these come from the Dead Orbit vendor. It says this: "Keep your ghost close, Guardian. Luna is more dangerous than you think. And then I will have our ship standing by in case you encounter anything unexpected." We then have Lakshmi from Future War Cult. The first thing she says is any Red Legion prisons on the moon, so that doesn't really tie into anything with this. It just basically confirms that this dialogue was in fact for Destiny 2. Her next one says, "Good, the War Cult always seeks operatives on the moon. The Hive defeated us there once, never again." And her last one says, "The darkness on the moon is an offense to the War Cult. Thank you." So Lakshmi has a couple of more lines. The first one says, "Has the House of Dusk spread to the moon?" So that's interesting because we've heard about these Purple Fallen being called the House of Dusk. And her second line says, "I've long predicted darkness worship. I did not expect the House of Dusk." In the Bungie livestream at the part where Dado was doing his interviews, they talked about the Fallen setting up a new shop on the moon for their own reasons, and I believe this could be the line it's pertaining to.
There's also smaller stories that have been uncovered because of all of this this chaos and happening in that place. The Fallen have a new place that they've set up, and they have their own reasons for doing that.
But Guardians is all I got for today's video. Let me know your thoughts on the darkness being on the moon, where we're gonna go from here, and if these shadow beings are in fact that secret 5th race. If you want to see some more awesome Destiny 2 mysteries and entertainment like this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Anyway, I thank you very much for watching. My name's Evade, and I'll catch you Guardians in the next one.